Hi, I'm Julie, Truthsayer. I would like to say the truth about a lot of what's going on in our world, in our society, within us, and what we can do to help. So, if we look at society today, we go, wow, what happened to our society? What happened to our country? There's so much violence, there's so much criminal activity, there's so much ugliness and hatred. What happened to that beautiful shining on the city on the hill that we were? For so many refugees and so many downtrodden who came to our shores seeking hope and prosperity and fulfillment. What happened? Well, our experts tell us that today crime is actually down. All the major crimes are down, like super down in all of our communities. And even murder, one-on-one murder, is down by 40%. But if we look at prison populations, according to the GAO report that came out this July 2012, we see that prison populations are overcrowded by 39%. Murder down 40%, prison population overcrowded 39%. There seems to be some kind of correlation there. So we're not really getting rid of crime. We're kind of just moving it, locking it up, and so we really appreciate it not being on the streets. But why do people feel like they have to perform crimes to get what they need in our society today? Or why do they feel like they want to commit crimes to acquire what they want? And it's not going to be getting any better, according to that same GAO report. It says that in the year 2016, a little over 3 years from now, the overcrowdedness in the prisons will be up by 45%. So we don't really have a lot to look forward to here. If we look at some other statistics like drug abuse, with our children, drug abuse, unfortunately, is on the rise again. And according to a recent PATS report, it even said that drug abuse is up in ecstasy use 67%. That ecstasy is just a really rapacious drug in the mind. And marijuana use is also up 22%. So and then if we look at just drug abuse and addiction in general, there's over 22.2 million drug and or alcohol addicts in the United States of America today, and so many of them can't get help. There's just too many. And just recreational drug use, it never used to be that way, where people always felt like, well, we have to get blasted, to have a good time or deal with life. What's happened to our society there, and especially our children, our future? Oh, that's scary. If we look at domestic violence, in the statistics for domestic violence website, we find that every 9 seconds in the United States of America, a woman is either sexually assaulted and or raped. Why do people feel like it's okay to prey upon the most intimate parts of a woman? If we look at other statistics, such as suicide in our society, according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, we see that in 1993 there was a real kind of peak in suicides, and then it went down, and then it started to go up again, and then in 2009 we went above the level of 1993. 2010 we even went above that level, and today suicide is considered the 10th highest cause of death in the United States of America. Why are people feeling so hopeless, and like the only way that they can kind of deal with what's going on with them is to check out? That's very depressing and hopeless for us also. if we look at mass murder in the United States of America, we find that according to a New York Times study, in the 1900s, every decade, there was only 1 to 2 suicides per decade in the 20th century, the 1900s, until you get to the years and the decade of the 1980s. It jumps, boom, up to 9 mass murders in that decade. 9 mass murders. And then if we go further to the 1990s, we find that there's 11 mass murders. So that's over one a year. And then in the 2000 to 2012, there's been 26 mass murders. So that's over 2 a year. Wow. Why are people just going off the deep end and feeling like they can just rampage and murder in our society? And then if we even look at the most depressing statistics, our children, our young, beautiful, vulnerable little children, so loving and trusting. And we find that nowadays, according to Ragaiva Noor, who's a writer for the Yahoo website news, she wrote that if we extrapolate from her statistics that up to 30 to 35,000 pedophiles access and are involved in the child pornography websites here, that's just here in the United States of America, on a regular basis. And if we look at around the world, we find there's a report from the NBC.com recently that 70,000 pedophiles were just discovered in a huge pedophile ring that's international, and 263 children were rescued. This is actually, they were abusing 263 children. What kind of a future are those poor children going to have? And what does this say about our whole world? The horror and the darkness that has invaded every part of our living is just horrible and depressing when we look at it. So I can tell you why this is happening and why it's more and more happening. It's because very few people today are even seeking or trying to do God's will in our lives and manifest God's light here on earth. It says, ta-da! It says in the Bible that in, let's see, 1 John 15, that God is light and in him is no darkness. And it also says in 1 John 4, verse 16, that God is love, and he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God. And it also says in John 4, verse 24, that God is a spirit, and they that would worship him in spirit and in truth. Yes, truth. So they that would worship him in spirit and in truth. So if we are created in God's image, and if God is light, we are light. If God is love, we are love. If God is a spirit and light and love, that's what we are. So we want to, in our spirits, open ourselves to magnify and take in that light of God and be the light of God in this society. And God gave us free will. So we can either open our spirits to darkness and create darkness, since God created us in his will, in his image. We are co-creators, and we are creating darkness according to our free will right now in this society. And it wasn't so for long times in our history and in our life of our country. When the Pilgrims came here, of course, everybody went to church, and everybody was busy, very busy, always reading the Bible and trying to figure out what God's will was and do God's will and be obedient to God's will. And the Native Americans worshiped that great Spirit of God in everything. And then in the 1940s, even 40% of the people were going to church. And here in this day and age, only 17.7% of people are going to church. That's the problem. And those statistics come from actual head counts in the church. If we go by polls, it says 40%, but see, that's called the halo effect, where people want to look better than they really are. So if a pollster calls, they go, oh yeah, I go to church all the time. But in reality, when we actually do head counts in the church services, we find out, nope, only 17.7% of the people really are going to church every Sunday. And those head counts were started by a Pastor Olson in the 1980s, and they were found to be very effective and truthful, and also a religious review journal corroborates that, 17.7%. So what are we worshiping then? What are we obeying? Whose will are we obeying in our society today? Well, how about our revered and beloved political leaders? We always want to do what they want us to do. How about our political parties? We want to obey them and do what they want us to do. How about our next door neighbor? Yeah, we want to get their good opinion, so we're going to do that. And how our bartender down the street, got to be Jake with their will and what they think is good. Our live-in lovers, our bosses, anybody but God's will. But what's that going to get us once we leave this planet Earth and we go for our review with God in that place filled with light and love, and we look at our lives and God says, wow, what happened here? You never seem to do my will, you're always doing their will and creating darkness instead of light, and you won't have your wonderful political leader standing there going, oh, but they meant well, and they were trying. Or you won't have your great political party to defend you. You won't have your socioeconomic or ethnic group to stand around you and say, well, did the best they could, did the best we could. We stand alone before God, and what's going to happen? And I speak about me too, because I have to really stand up and have the courage to stand up and do God's will in my life, instead of just acquiescing and selling my soul to popular opinion and going along and putting up with things I know are wrong, because God wrote in the Bible, in Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 33, I will put my law on their inward parts. So we know when we're breaking the law of God. We know when we're doing wrong. We know when we're out of alignment with God. And yet if we just keep shoving that away and keep people around us so that we've got the support of people around us, we don't really have to look at that voice inside of us going, uh-oh, what are you doing? Hello? Or our gut is churning, or I'm doing the wrong thing, but I'm going to do it anyway because my great society wants me to. What would I do? How would I face my friends? How would I face my coworkers? How would I face my political party, if I didn't do this? Well, then that's what you're going to have. But let's all of us get down and bend our knees and ask for God's will and ask for what God wants us to do and start doing that instead. And we're going to have light again in our country. No crime, no depression, no other nastiness, just God's light. I'm Julie, Truthsayer, See you later.